I work in this site for many years, for decades. Yeah. So these warriors are all life-sized, like real soldiers.
For thousands of years, the Terracotta Army has stood silently in the soil, its purpose hidden from the world. People admired the soldiers, horses, and chariots, but no one really knew why they were built or what secrets lay beneath them. Now, Albert Lin is using high-tech drones, lidar, and ground-penetrating radar to uncover the truth, revealing what's actually under the Terracotta Army. The soldiers may not just guard a tomb, they could be hiding something far more terrifying. What has been buried for 2,000 years, and what is still waiting to be found? Join us as we explore. The day the ground of armies was examined. Albert Lin did not arrive at the Terracotta Army site with digging tools. He came with sensors, scanners, drones, and computers. He is known for using advanced technology to study places that are difficult to explore. His work often combines science, history, and remote sensing. Instead of touching the ground with a shovel, he studies what lies below the surface using machines that can see through soil. The Terracotta Army site in Shanxi province is one of the most protected archaeological locations in the world. The famous pits with thousands of clay warriors are only a small part of a very large burial complex linked to the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang. For many years, large areas around the central mound have remained closed to excavation. The reason is simple. Archaeologists want to avoid damaging what is buried. They also want to wait until technology improves enough to study the underground safely. This is where Albert Lin's approach became important. He specializes in non-invasive exploration. This means studying ancient sites without digging into them. His team brought tools designed to scan the earth from above and from the surface. These tools are often used in fields like environmental science, geology, and even military mapping. At this historic site, they were used to look for hidden shapes under the soil. One of the key tools used was lidar. Lidar stands for light detection and ranging. It works by sending out millions of tiny laser pulses from a drone or aircraft. These pulses hit the ground and bounce back. A computer measures how long each pulse takes to return. From this data, a very detailed map of the surface is created. Lidar can even detect slight changes in ground level that human eyes cannot notice. It can see patterns hidden under trees, grass, and uneven land. Another tool was ground-penetrating radar. This device sends radio waves into the soil. When these waves hit something solid, such as stone, brick, or empty space, they bounce back to the sensor. The returning signals form a picture of what lies below. It does not produce a clear photo, but it shows outlines, layers, and shapes that should not naturally exist underground. Drones played a major role in carrying these sensors. Flying above the protected zones allowed the team to collect data without stepping into restricted areas. This method was very important because many parts of the burial complex cannot be walked on freely. The site is tightly monitored by authorities. Every movement is observed. Every scan requires permission. Equipment is checked carefully. Flights over certain areas are usually not allowed at all. The presence of security and supervision created a tense working environment. The team could not simply move around as they wished. They had to request approval before each scan. Officials watched the monitors and equipment closely. This was not because of distrust, but because of the cultural and historical value of the location. The government treats the site as a national treasure that must be protected from damage. As the scans began, the early results seemed ordinary. The radar showed known pits where the clay soldiers stand. It showed areas that archaeologists had already mapped. But as more data came in, the patterns started to change. Shapes appeared that were not on any official map. Straight lines formed where no walls were known to exist. Deep vertical features appeared in places that had never been excavated. These were not natural formations. Natural soil layers are usually uneven and random. The radar images showed clean edges and repeating patterns. Some areas looked like long, buried corridors. Others looked like large, empty chambers. There were also narrow shafts that went straight down into the earth. These shafts extended much deeper than the soldier pits that are open to visitors. The team compared these images with historical site plans. The shapes did not match anything recorded. This raised serious questions. If these structures were real, they suggested that the underground complex was far larger than previously understood. The famous army pits might only be a small part of a much bigger design. Lidar maps added to the mystery. From above, the land looked normal, but when processed through the laser data, subtle outlines appeared in the terrain. Slight rises and dips in the soil formed patterns that looked man-made. Large rectangular spaces could be traced under flat ground. Long lines connected distant parts of the area, as if linking rooms or tunnels. The data from radar and lidar started to overlap. When two different technologies show similar patterns, the confidence in the results increases. So, if the scans were revealing walls no map had ever shown, what exactly had been hidden beneath the army for 2,000 years? The army that was never meant to be the main attraction. The Terracotta Army is often presented as the main wonder of the site. Visitors see long rows of clay soldiers standing in battle formation. These figures are life-sized. Each face is different. Each posture is unique. There are infantrymen, archers, officers, horses, and wooden chariots that once stood with bronze fittings. The scale is overwhelming. It is easy to believe that this army is the full purpose of the burial complex. However, when experts study the layout of the entire area, a different picture appears. The army pits are not located at the center of the burial mound. They sit to the east of the emperor's main tomb. This position is important. Historical records explain that the emperor's old rival states were located to the east. Placing the soldiers in that direction suggests a symbolic defensive line. Even in death, the emperor was positioned as if guarding himself from former enemies. The pits contain thousands of warriors. Many more figures have been found over time, including clay horses and chariots. Bronze weapons such as swords, spears, crossbow parts, and arrowheads were discovered with the soldiers. Tests show that many of these weapons were real and sharp when buried. Nearby pits also contain figures of acrobats, officials, and musicians. There are clay stables with carefully shaped horses. There are birds made from bronze. There are tools that represent daily life. This wide range of objects shows something important. The site was not designed to hold only an army. It was designed to represent a full working world. The emperor did not prepare for the afterlife with guards alone. He prepared symbols of government, entertainment, transport, and labor. This suggests an attempt to recreate the structure of his empire beneath the ground. Large spaces exist between the known pits. These open areas are not empty by accident. Archaeological surveys show that the burial complex spreads across a very large area. Only a small portion has been excavated. The emperor's main tomb mound remains unopened. Around it, many satellite pits and structures have been discovered over time. Some contain statues. Others contain animal remains, bronze items, or simple empty chambers. When the layout is viewed as a whole, it begins to resemble a planned underground city. The soldiers appear to stand at what could be described as an outer boundary. They are positioned like a gate or perimeter, not like the center of activity. The main tomb sits deeper inside this arrangement, protected by layers of space and distance. This pattern leads to an interesting idea that many researchers discuss. The army may have been designed as a visible layer, meant to draw attention, while the most important parts of the complex lie farther within. The careful planning suggests that the emperor was not only concerned with protection, he was concerned with recreating order, power, and control in the afterlife. Historical writings from ancient China describe how Qin Shi Huang sought immortality throughout his life. He sent missions in search of magical substances. He ordered massive construction projects. He believed strongly in preparing for life after death. When this belief is connected with the layout of the burial site, it supports the view that the complex was meant to be more than a grave. It was meant to be a continuation of rule. But if the army was only the entrance, who or what was it really guarding? The shapes that should not exist. As ground scanning technology improves, researchers are able to study what lies beneath the soil without digging. Ground-penetrating radar and other survey tools have been used around the Terracotta Army site for many years. These tools help archaeologists understand underground features while keeping the site protected. The radar images do not show clear pictures. Instead, they reveal outlines, densities, and layers in the soil. Straight lines often indicate walls or corridors. Large dark zones can indicate empty spaces or filled pits. When these images are studied carefully, patterns begin to appear that are not natural. Beneath and around the soldier pits, radar scans have shown areas where the soil looks heavily disturbed. In archaeology, disturbed soil means the ground has been moved, filled, or altered in the past. This can happen when pits are dug, tunnels are created, or materials are buried. These areas do not have the smooth layers that form naturally over time. Some of these underground shapes appear as irregular holes or filled trenches. They are not shaped like rooms. They are not shaped like planned chambers. They look like areas where large amounts of earth were moved quickly and then covered again. This type of pattern raises questions for researchers. Ancient historical texts, written long after the emperor's death, claim that many workers were involved in building the tomb complex. Some writings suggest that strict control was used to keep the construction secret. There are even claims that workers were not allowed to leave after certain parts were finished. These accounts are debated by historians, but they remain part of the historical discussion. Archaeological evidence from other parts of the complex shows human remains in burial pits. These burials are not always arranged carefully. Some appear hurried, others are located close to work areas. This suggests that laborers and builders were present in large numbers and that some passed away near the site during construction. Soil studies sometimes reveal mixed layers where different materials have been pushed together. This can happen when pits collapse or when large amounts of earth are dumped back into a hole. These mixed layers can also contain small fragments of bone. However, finding clear proof of large-scale mass burial directly beneath the soldier pits has not been confirmed by excavation. Most evidence comes from patterns seen in scans and from discoveries in nearby areas of the complex. In some places within the broader burial grounds, archaeologists have found skeletons that show signs of physical restraint. This suggests that prisoners or forced laborers may have been used during construction. The Qin dynasty was known for harsh laws and strict punishment. Using prisoners for labor was common at that time. These findings create a troubling picture. The construction of such a massive burial complex required enormous human effort. The radar images showing disturbed soil hint at intense activity underground. Combined with historical writings, they raise the possibility that many people suffered while building this project. Collapsed sections of underground structures have also been detected. When ceilings fall in, they create chaotic soil patterns. These patterns can be seen in radar scans as broken layers and scattered materials. Such features suggest that parts of the underground network may have failed long ago and were never repaired. The shapes seen in the scans do not look like organized architecture. They look like zones of heavy human activity, followed by sudden burial. If thousands of workers were silenced under the soldiers' feet, what secrets were they forced to pass away with? The tunnels, traps, and the pyramid. No one can see. The burial complex of Qin Shi Huang was not built like an ordinary grave. It was designed with layers, distance, and protection. The deeper researchers study the site using modern scanning tools, the more it begins to resemble a fortified underground structure rather than a simple resting place. Ground-penetrating radar has shown several deep vertical features beneath the soil around the known pits. These features appear as narrow shafts that go far below the level of the soldier chambers. They are much deeper than the excavated areas open to visitors. Such shafts are not natural. They suggest controlled digging that went down into the earth in a planned way. These vertical forms may have served several purposes. In ancient construction, shafts were sometimes used for ventilation, drainage, or access during building. They could also have been used as hidden passages or as ways to move materials underground. The depth of these shafts suggests that the builders worked at multiple levels below the surface, not just in shallow pits. Radar scans also show what look like hollow spaces far below the known structures. These appear as air pockets or voids that do not match the layout of the excavated pits. Some of these voids are long and narrow. Others are wide and rectangular. They look like tunnels and chambers that have never been opened. Ancient historical records written many years after the emperor's death describe mechanical traps placed inside the tomb. These writings mention crossbows set to fire automatically at intruders. While wood and rope from such devices would have decayed long ago, bronze parts could have survived. These stories cannot be confirmed without entering the tomb, but they show that defensive thinking was part of the design. The idea of traps fits with the overall pattern seen in the scans. The burial complex was not only meant to honor the emperor, it was meant to keep people out. Protection was built into the very structure of the site. Layers of earth, hidden spaces, and deep features all point to a plan focused on security. Lidar mapping has added another interesting detail. When laser scans of the land around the mound are processed, subtle shapes appear in the terrain. These shapes are not visible to the eye when standing on the ground. The surface looks smooth and natural, but in the digital map, a form emerges that resembles a large stepped structure beneath the soil. This shape is often described as similar to a pyramid made from packed earth. It sits under the main burial mound and is hidden by layers of soil placed over it. Packed earth was a common building material in ancient China. It was strong, stable, and easy to shape into large forms. Creating a solid mass beneath the tomb would have added another layer of protection. This buried structure suggests that the emperor's tomb was not placed directly into the ground. Instead, it may have been set on top of a carefully shaped foundation. This foundation would make it harder to reach the inner chambers. It would also make the central area stronger and less likely to collapse over time. The presence of this hidden form supports the idea that the burial site was engineered with multiple levels of defense. Anyone trying to reach the center would have to pass through layers of earth, voids, and possibly traps. The design begins to look less like a grave and more like a sealed fortress. The unknown tunnels and deep spaces add to this feeling. If these features are truly connected, they may form a network beneath the site that is still unexplored. All this protection was not built for workers. It was built for something far more personal to the emperor, the prince in the hidden hole. Among the many discoveries made around the burial complex, some of the most unsettling involve human remains found in unusual conditions. While many skeletons in the area appear to belong to workers or laborers, there are rare cases where burials look very different. In one such case, archaeologists studying parts of the broader site found a skeleton placed with unusual care. The bones belonged to a young adult male. The body was arranged neatly, not thrown into a pit like many others. Nearby were items that suggested a higher social status. The location of the burial was also deeper than most worker graves. The most striking detail was the presence of a bronze arrowhead lodged in the skull. This injury was not accidental. It clearly showed that the person passed away from a deliberate act of violence. The careful placement of the body suggests that this was not an ordinary execution. It may have been done with intention and ceremony. Historical records tell us that Qin Shi Huang had many sons. After his death, the throne did not pass peacefully. His second son became emperor, and ancient writings describe political struggles within the royal family. Some records mention that several brothers and sisters disappeared from history without clear explanation. This context leads some historians to connect the unusual burial with the possibility of a royal victim. The careful arrangement, the depth of the grave, and the presence of valuable objects suggest that this person was not a simple worker or prisoner. He may have been someone of importance. One theory is that this individual was a prince eliminated during a power struggle. Removing potential rivals was a known practice in ancient royal courts. If a son of the emperor posed a threat to the new ruler, he could have been quietly executed and buried in a hidden place within the complex. Another theory is linked to ancient beliefs about protection in the afterlife. Some cultures practiced ritual sacrifice to ensure that important individuals were guarded beyond death. In this view, a member of the royal family may have been assassinated to serve as an eternal guardian for the emperor's tomb. If even royal blood was buried in secret, what did the written records say about the emperor's true nature? The scrolls that read like confessions. Much of what is known about Qin Shi Huang does not come from the tomb itself. It comes from ancient writings that survived long after his death. These writings were recorded on bamboo slips and later copied into historical books. They describe the emperor's rule, his policies, and his fears. When these texts are studied alongside the burial complex, they form a psychological picture of a ruler who was deeply concerned about control, loyalty, and immortality. One of the most discussed events in these records is the punishment of scholars. Historical accounts describe how many scholars were executed or buried alive after disagreeing with the emperor's ideas. This act was linked to his effort to control knowledge and remove opposing views. He ordered books from earlier traditions to be destroyed. The goal was to erase ideas that challenged his authority and to unify thinking under his rule. These actions show a ruler who feared criticism. He did not want alternative teachings to survive. He wanted a single version of truth that supported his power. This mindset helps explain why secrecy and strict supervision were used during the building of his burial complex. Workers, engineers, and builders were likely watched closely to prevent information from spreading. Ancient texts also describe how the emperor was obsessed with finding a way to live forever. He sent groups of people on long sea journeys to search for mythical islands where immortality was believed to exist. These missions carried many young men and women, and they never returned. Some historians believe these trips failed. Others suggest they were part of the emperor's desperate search for life beyond death. The writings describe how he trusted alchemists and healers who promised magical substances. Many of these substances contained mercury. At that time, mercury was believed to have life-giving properties. This belief explains why mercury appears in descriptions of the tomb and why soil tests around the mound show very high levels of this metal. Some ancient records mention a hidden chamber filled with riches and guarded by dangerous substances. They describe the inside of the tomb as a model of the empire, complete with flowing rivers made from liquid metal. These texts use poetic language, but modern soil studies support the idea that mercury was placed inside the tomb in large amounts. The scrolls also speak about fear within the emperor's court. Builders and officials who worked closely with him could be punished for small mistakes. The strict laws of the Qin dynasty meant that even minor errors could lead to severe punishment. This atmosphere of fear likely surrounded the construction of the burial site. When these historical accounts are read together, they suggest that the clay army may not simply represent loyalty and honor. Instead, it may represent the emperor's desire to control everything, even after death. The soldiers stand as a symbol of order, discipline, and power. They are arranged perfectly, facing outward, as if guarding against threats. The burial complex begins to look like a physical expression of the emperor's state of mind. His fear of rebellion, his desire for unity, and his obsession with immortality all appear in the design. The scrolls do not describe the army directly, but they describe the personality that ordered its creation. The scrolls warn about poisoned rivers, and that leads to the most dangerous place on earth that no one has opened. The tomb no one dares to open. At the center of the entire burial complex lies the emperor's main tomb. This mound of earth has never been opened. Archaeologists know where it is located, but they have chosen to leave it sealed. The reason is not mystery alone. It is science, safety, and preservation. Soil tests taken from around the mound show very high levels of mercury. These levels are far above what is found naturally in the ground. This supports ancient descriptions of rivers made from liquid mercury inside the tomb. At the time, mercury was seen as a substance connected to life and eternity. Today, it is known as a dangerous poison. If large amounts of mercury are still inside the sealed chamber, opening it could release toxic vapors into the air. These vapors could harm anyone nearby. The pressure inside the tomb after more than 2,000 years could also cause sudden changes when exposed to outside air. There is another serious problem. Archaeologists have learned from past experience that opening sealed ancient spaces can destroy delicate materials. In the 1980s, when smaller pits of soldiers were opened, the bright paint on the statues began to peel off within minutes. The colors had survived for centuries in a stable environment. Exposure to air caused rapid damage. Experts fear that the emperor's main tomb could contain wooden structures, silk fabrics, paintings, and other materials that would be ruined immediately if exposed. Once damaged, these items could never be restored. Waiting for better preservation technology is considered safer than rushing to explore. Modern scans of the mound show something else of interest. Beneath the surface, radar and other tools detect a very large empty space. This space appears to be several stories tall. It lies directly under the center of the mound, where the emperor's burial chamber is believed to be located. But even mercury and traps may not be the darkest part of this story, because there is one more theory that changes how we see the clay soldiers themselves. Are the soldiers themselves part of the crime? The terracotta soldiers are famous for their detail, size, and number. Each figure was made from clay, shaped by hand, fired in a kiln, and painted in bright colors. Studies show that the craftsmen used local materials found near the burial site. The clay did not come from far away. It was taken from the soil around the same region where the pits, tunnels, and burial areas were dug. This simple fact creates an unusual line of thinking when placed beside the evidence of human remains found in parts of the complex. The clay and the burial soil came from the same ground. The workers dug deep into the earth to gather material for statues, while, at the same time, construction pits and graves were being made nearby. These activities happened in close proximity over many years. Scientific tests on the clay figures have already shown that the material contains minerals common to the local soil. This confirms that the clay was not specially imported. It was collected from the surrounding land. Modern forensic science is able to examine soil and clay in great detail. By studying tiny particles, scientists can identify what the material has been mixed with and where it originated. In many archaeological sites around the world, soil contains small traces of organic material. These can include plant remains, ash from fires, and microscopic bone fragments from animals or humans that once lived in the area. Over long periods, such materials break down and mix naturally with the earth. When this soil is later used for construction or pottery, those tiny traces can remain inside the final product without anyone noticing. This opens a disturbing but realistic possibility. If the soil used for making the soldiers came from areas close to burial pits, it may have contained microscopic traces from human remains. These would not be visible to the eye. The craftsmen shaping the statues would not have known. Yet the clay itself could have carried particles from the same ground where workers or prisoners were buried. This idea does not claim that bones or ashes were deliberately mixed into the statues. There is no proof of intentional action. Instead, it suggests an accidental connection between the burial soil and the clay used for the army. Modern testing methods, such as microscopic mineral and organic analysis, could one day examine this question more closely. Cultural beliefs from ancient China add another layer to this thought. Many traditions held the idea that spirit and material were closely connected. Objects placed in tombs were believed to carry meaning beyond their physical form. They could serve the dead in the afterlife. They could represent living beings, or even contain symbolic life. When this belief is placed beside the possibility that the clay came from soil mixed with human remains, the statues take on a new symbolic meaning. They are no longer only artistic creations. They become objects formed from the same earth that received the bodies of workers and prisoners. The ground itself becomes part of the soldiers. This connection reframes how the army can be viewed. Instead of seeing the soldiers only as protectors of the emperor, they can also be seen as part of a system that covered up what happened during construction. The clay army stands above areas where intense labor, punishment, and death may have occurred. The statues are placed directly over that history. The arrangement creates a powerful image. Thousands of silent figures stand on the surface, while the ground below holds hidden stories. If the army was not built to guard the emperor, but to bury the truth forever, what else is still waiting beneath the soil, unseen? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.